Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I will be giving you my Vanguard Marine unit review from the new box set Shadowspear. In this video I will be going over the stats, abilities, and war gear of each unit the Space Marine side of the box has to offer, alongside the new psychic spells and warlord traits, and I'm going to analyze them and let you know if I think they will be viable for competitive play or if they'll end up collecting dust on your shelf like my entire Grey Knight army. I will try to go over my reasoning for my conclusions as well so you can understand what my thought process is and how I came to those conclusions. If you wanted to check out my opinions on the Chaos side of the box set, I released a video a couple of days ago you should check out as well. Note though, I did make a small error in that video when I said Obliterators were basically the same as they were before the box set release, but I did correct myself in the pinned comment of that video, so check that out as well after you check out that video. Alright, so now with that said, let's get into the actual content of this video, and let's talk about the Space Marine half of the Shadowspear box set. So first, let's talk about some of the rule changes on page 14 and 16 of the mini Vanguard Marine Codex from the box set. It states the rules for the chapter keyword and how it works. It also states how some keywords change when using some of these models in Dark Angels and Space Wolves. It states that if you use the Captain from this box set in Dark Angels, then you replace the Captain keyword with the Master keyword, and if you use them in Space Wolves, then you replace the Captain keyword with Wolflord. It also states that if you use the Librarian from this box set in Dark Angels, that he gains the Deathwing keyword and also the ability Inner Circle, and if you use the Librarian model in Space Wolves, he gains the Rune Priest keyword. This is pretty interesting but makes sense, since these keywords are what those two armies work with. So it's nice that Games Workshop thought ahead and made these changes ahead of time instead of waiting for an FAQ or an errata. So now let's get into the actual units. So we have the Captain and Phobos armor for 119 points. This guy is an HQ and has a generic Primaris Captain stat line. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 2+, strength and toughness 4, 6 wounds, 5 attacks, leadership 9, and a 3+ save. He is equipped with a bolt pistol, mastercrafted Instigator bolt carbine, a combat knife, and a camo cloak and upgrades. The Mastercrafted Carbine is 30-inch range, heavy 1, strength 4, -2 AP, and 2 damage, and it can target characters even if it is not the closest enemy unit. And the Bolt Pistol, Combat Knife, and Grenades are the same as they were before. As for the new Captain's abilities, he has No Fear like all Marines, Iron Halo, which is a 4+ invulnerable save, Rites of Battle, which is the 6-inch reroll 1 aura for generic captains, a Camo Cloak, which is +2 to his save if he's in cover, Concealed Positions, which allows him to be deployed anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment and enemy models, which later on in this video I will refer to this ability as normal scout deployment. And he also has an Omni Scrambler, which forces enemy units to have to deep strike more than 12 inches away instead of the normal 9 inches away. I actually kind of like this guy, and I think he would work well with supporting a bunch of sniper scouts or eliminators outside of your deployment zone. He can give rerolls of 1s to the snipers to make them more efficient while also providing some sniper fire himself. And with his Omni Scrambler ability, depending on how you deploy him with those scouts, he can protect them from deep strikes as well and make armies like Genestealer Cult and Blood Angels hate their life choices. So overall, I think he's decent and a good choice for an HQ slot in your army if you want to go the sniper route, or another route that I'll talk about in a minute when we get to the Infiltrator Squad, which is another new unit from this box set. The next unit to talk about is the Librarian and Phobos armor, and like the Master of Possession from the last box, I will be going over the new discipline this guy has access to after going through his stats and abilities, because the new discipline will be a big factor in whether or not I think this guy is worth taking in a tournament list. So his basic stats are the exact same as a regular Primaris Librarian. So weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3+, strength and toughness 4, 5 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 9, and a 3+ save. He is equipped with a Force Sword, a bolt pistol, camo cloak, and grenades, which all do the same things as they used to do before this book. The abilities he has includes No Fear, Concealed Positions, which is the normal scout deployment, the Camo Cloak, which is the +2 to your cover save when you're in cover, and a Psychic Hood, which adds 1 to your Deny the Witch rolls when within 12 inches of enemy Psychers who are casting a spell that you're trying to deny. So pretty standard for the most part for a normal Librarian, or at least a normal Primaris Librarian. But he does get all this new scout-like stuff, which Librarians don't normally have access to, and he also has access to the new Obscuration discipline. So let's get into that discipline before I give my conclusion on this model. So like all disciplines, the Obscuration discipline has 6 spells. The first spell is called Shrouding and is warp charge 6, so it's pretty easy to manifest. If manifested, you pick a friendly Adeptus Astartes Phobos unit within 18 inches of the Librarian, and your opponent cannot target that unit with shooting attacks unless that unit is the closest unit to them. This is limited to the stuff from this box set and Reavers because those are the only units that currently have the Phobos keyword. With that in mind, the only units you'd really be using this on are units that need to defend objectives and maybe eliminators. So it has its uses and it's still a good spell. The second spell is called Scryer's Gaze and is Warp Charge 6. So like the first spell, it's pretty easy to manifest. This spell allows you to target a friendly Adeptus Astartes Phobos unit within 18 inches of the Psyker and allows them to reroll all failed hits when shooting and also gives their ranged weapons ignore cover. This is alright, but I think there are better spells worth taking, since cover isn't really a huge deal in 8th edition, at least in its current form, unless you're in a mirror match, because Primaris with a 1-up save because of the camo cloaks and cover is really good. And the reroll failed hits isn't all that great because your captains give reroll 1s, which is good enough in my opinion, or you're probably playing with Gilliman who does this anyways. The third spell is Temporal Corridor and is Warp Charge 6, so again another easily manifested spell. This spell allows you to target a friendly Adeptus Astartes Phobos unit within 3 inches of the Psyker, and that unit gets to move as if it were the movement phase, and they must advance while doing this. And when advancing, they roll 3d6 and discard the lowest 2 results. The most practical use for this spell that I can see is the Librarian casting this on himself in order to move farther to get in range to cast his other spells on other things. Other than that, you can cast this on other units to try to get them onto an objective or something like that, but really that's about it in my opinion. It's not really good for charging because you can't charge after you advance, so yeah, those are the only 2 uses that I would mainly use it for. The fourth spell is Hallucination and is Warp Charge 6, which yet again is pretty easy to manifest. I'm seeing a reoccurring theme here. This spell allows you to target an enemy unit within 18 inches and subtract 1 from their leadership. In addition, you roll 2d6, and if the result is higher than their leadership, then you subtract 1 from their hit rolls until the next psychic phase. This is a really good spell, especially when you combine it in a combo that I discovered. And that combo includes Dark Angel's Aversion, Dark Angel's Mind Wipe, and Space Wolf's Tempest's Wrath. Basically, if you combine all of these spells, you have a chance of making something like a Castellan or a pretty big unit that has a ton of guns. You can make it useless for the entire turn and possibly the entire game. So the combo would be this. You cast Hallucination on a Castellan or an equivalent to lower its leadership by 1. You then roll your 2d6 to see if you can make it -1 to hit for its rolls, effectively making it hit on a 4+. Then you use Mind Wipe from a Dark Angel's Librarian on the enemy Castellan, which is now easier to get off because you subtracted 1 from the Castellan's leadership with Hallucination, and if it does go off, the Castellan now lowers its leadership by 1 again, its ballistic skill by 1, and its weapon skill by 1 for the rest of the game, which means it's now -1 leadership, -1 when shooting, and -1 in close combat for the rest of the game. And with the previous Hallucination, it's now -2 when shooting for that turn, which means it's only going to be hitting on a 5+. Then you can cast Tempest's Wrath with a Space Wolf's Rune Priest on the same Castellan, making it -3 to hit when shooting, so now it's only hitting on 6s. And then if you really wanted to make the Castellan as useless as the whole Grey Knight's Codex, you can cast Aversion on it to make it another -1 to hit for the turn. So it only hits on 7s, and 7s don't exist on a 6-sided dice, which means even if it shoots, there is literally no way it can hit anything. This is how you make a big unit like the Castellan basically useless without even having to kill it. Then you repeat this on the next turn with only Hallucination and Mind Wipe, and you can cast Tempest's Wrath and Aversion on another unit to make another unit semi-useless. So this combo sounds really broken. But to be fair, if your opponent has either some Calexis Assassins or some Vindicares in their list because of the new Assassin rules, well, then good luck keeping your characters alive or even just getting the spells off. But overall, if your opponent isn't ready for this, it could shut down one of their big shooty units for the entire game and pretty much make it useless. So this is a great spell and has a great combo that I assume we will see in competitive lists going forward, or we'll see variations of it in competitive lists going forward. The fifth spell is Tenebris something Curse, and it's Warp Charge 6. If this spell is manifested, you target an enemy unit with the fly keyword within 18 inches. That unit suffers a mortal wound and has its movement characteristic and advance rolls for the next turn. This can be useful, but not the greatest since it's only against units that can fly. If your opponent does happen to have a unit that has the fly keyword and its infantry though, you can combine this with the Tremor Shell stratagem with the Thunderfire Cannon, or the Vigilus Defiant stratagem for Wyverns and Basilisks, to basically make that fly infantry unit not be able to move at all, which is actually kind of funny. And the sixth and final spell is Mind Raid, which, yet again, is Warp Charge 6. If manifested, you target an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, and it suffers a mortal wound. If that unit is a character, you then roll 3d6, and if the result is higher than its leadership, you gain 1 command point. This is pretty nifty, but to be honest, kind of meh. Since the command point regeneration restrictions, you probably already have Grand Strategist or Kirov's Aquila or Gilliman to get that command point back anyways. So in my opinion, taking this spell is kind of a wasted spell slot. And that's it for the spells from the Obscuration discipline. So now this leads to my conclusion on if I think this librarian will see competitive play or if he's worth bringing. And the answer is a definite yes, mainly because of the combo I talked about with making the Castellan equivalent useless. The combo is really good and only requires 3 units that come up to around 300-ish points. And that combo could be used every turn to make multiple units useless. So based off of that alone, I think this guy is great if you bring a build like that. Getting back to the other units, now we have a Lieutenant in Phobos armor. He has the same stat line as a regular Primaris Lieutenant, and his weapons are the same too, except he comes with a new mastercrafted Oculus Bolt Carbine, which is strength 4, range 24, 0 AP, and 2 damage. And enemy units don't receive the benefit of cover when being attacked by this weapon. For abilities, it's all pretty standard for normal lieutenants, but for the new abilities, this guy can deep strike with the Grav Shoot ability, and apparently he's a knife fighter because his rolls of 6s to hit count as 2 hits when he's attacking with his close combat weapon. Overall, I think this guy is okay, but nothing too special. Now we move on to the troops, and in this box set there is only one troop choice, and that is the Infiltrator Squad. For 5 models you pay 110 points, which is kinda pricey, but they do come with a lot of cool stuff. You can also take a Helix Adept for 32 points, but I don't think he's worth it to be honest. So these guys have the normal stat line of regular Primaris. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, leadership 7, and 8 on the sergeant, and a 3+ armor. They are all equipped with marksman bolt carbines, bolt pistols, and grenades. For abilities, they have No Fear and Combat Squads, which are pretty much staples for a lot of Marine units. They have Concealed Positions, so that they can deploy like normal scouts. Omni Scramblers, which is the ability that says your opponent can't deep strike within 12 inches. And they have Smoke Grenades, which allows the unit to make itself -1 to hit instead of shooting. So overall, I think these guys are decent, especially at Deep Strike Denial, but for their points cost, I'd rather just take Scouts. For literally half the points, you get a Scout Squad, which also deploys outside of your deployment, has the same-ish guns, because they're Strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage, and you can take more of them. Sure, they don't have the 12-inch no Deep Strike ability, but they still deny a good enemy Deep Strike just by taking up area. And because Scouts are so cheap, you don't care if they die to that Deep Striking unit, because then the rest of your army is just going to kill that Deep Striking unit on the following turn. Sure, they also only have 1 wound and a 4+ armor compared to these guys, but the big point that I'm trying to get at is that they are cheaper, and I can bring more of them to cover more area. I go over this in my Deep Strike Denial video, but bringing cheap units with shitty stats with a lot of bodies is the way to go still, at least in my opinion. And let's just say you didn't want to bring the Infiltrators as Deep Strike Denial, and you just wanted them to be your normal attackers, well I would just take Intercessors over them, because their guns are better, plus they have that new cool formation from Vigilus Defiant, which makes them pretty good in my opinion. So overall, if you want Area Denial or Deep Strike Denial, I would still personally just stick with normal Scouts. And if you want damage, then I would just take Intercessors. The next unit to talk about is Suppressors. For 105 points, you get 3 regular Primaris stat lines, other than the fact that they can move 12 inches and they can fly. They are equipped with the Grav Shoot, Accelerator Autocannon, Bolt Pistol, and Grenades. The Autocannon is 48-inch range, Strength 7, -2 AP, and 2 damage. For their abilities, you get No Fear, Smoke Launchers, which is the -1 to hit instead of shooting, Grav Shoot, which basically gives them Deep Strike, and Suppressing Fire. And Suppressing Fire is if you kill an enemy model in a unit, that unit cannot fire Overwatch for that turn. Overall, I think these guys are alright, but I'd rather just bring other things. The main thing that's good about these guys is the autocannons. And Suppressing Fire sounds nice, but in all actuality, it's super situational. In my opinion, these guys might be okay in Space Wolves or Blood Angels, because those are really the only Space Marine armies that like charging infantry units, whereas the other Space Marine armies usually just shoot the infantry units. But even then, most infantry don't have scary Overwatch. It's the big one model units that usually have scary Overwatch, and you can't stop them from overwatching because you have to kill a model in the unit to stop it from overwatching. So overall, I don't really like these guys. They are cool but not practical in my opinion. And for the final unit to talk about before we briefly go over the Warlord traits is the Eliminator Squad. This squad comes with 3 models per squad, and they have normal Primaris Marine stat lines. They are equipped with camo cloaks, bolt sniper rifles, bolt pistols, and grenades. Their bolt sniper rifles have 3 profiles. All of them can target characters even if they aren't the closest enemy, kinda like normal snipers. The first profile is Executioner Rounds, which is heavy 1, strength 4, -2 AP, and D3 damage. And if you make a wound roll of 6+, it does a mortal wound in addition to its normal damage, again like normal snipers. The second profile is Mortis Round, which is heavy 1, strength 4, minus 1 AP, 1 damage, and you can target units you can't see, and you add 2 to the hit rolls for this weapon, which pretty much negates negative to hit modifiers, and usually makes you hit on a 2+. And the enemy doesn't receive cover while being shot at by this profile either. And the third profile is Hyperfrag Rounds, which is heavy D3, strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage. So these guys have a lot of options when it comes to their shooting attacks. The Executioner Round is good against big characters like Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines. The Mortis Round is good against Eldar characters or characters that are hiding. And Hyperfrag is good against regular infantry if you need them to help kill infantry or hordes. For their abilities, they have No Fear, Camo Cloaks, which gives them +2 to their saves if they're in cover, and Concealed Positions, which is normal scout deployment. Overall, I think this unit could be viable depending on your build. If you have some other snipers or even a Vindicare or 3 to help support them, then I think they could be alright. And that's it for the units. So overall, I think the standout unit is the Librarian because of the combo I mentioned, and then the next best is probably the Eliminators. And then the third best unit is probably the Captain and Phobos armor. Other than that, everything else is kinda lackluster in my opinion, at least when it comes to other options that the Imperium has to offer. So now let's briefly talk about the Warlord traits before I end this video. So these new Warlord traits go on Phobos characters, so basically the 3 characters from this box set. The first Warlord trait is called Shoot and Fade. This trait allows your Warlord to shoot and then move in advance after shooting. The second Warlord trait is called Princeps of Deceit. This trait allows your Warlord to redeploy up to 3 chapter infantry units that are on the battlefield, and as far as I can see, range isn't an issue, just himself and any 3 chapter infantry squads that are on the board. The third Warlord trait is called Master of the Vanguard. This trait adds 1 inch to the movement characteristic for friendly chapter units within 6 inches. In addition, it also adds 1 inch to the advance and charge rolls for friendly chapter units within 6 inches as well. The fourth Warlord trait is called Stealth Adept, and it gives -1 to hit to your Warlord. The fifth Warlord trait is called Target Priority. This basically gives your Warlord a super signum that allows you to, during your shooting phase, pick a friendly chapter unit within 3 inches and an enemy unit that you have visibility of. And then the target unit gets +1 to hit against the enemy unit for the rest of the phase. And the final Warlord trait is Marksman's Honor. This Warlord trait gives +1 damage to your ranged weapons, except your grenades, and you can reroll all failed hit and wound rolls for your Warlord's attacks. So overall, the 2 I like the best are Marksman's Honor and Princeps of Deceit. I like Marksman's Honor if you give it to a Captain in Phobos armor, because it makes him a decent sniper alongside your Eliminators and possibly a Vindicare or 2. This combination of units can do some serious damage to enemy characters. And the Princeps of Deceit I like, because you can do things like deploying super aggressively with 3 units in case you get first turn, and if you don't get first turn, you just redeploy those 3 units to mitigate the damage that you would have taken from not going first. You can even hide your more expensive units like your Eliminators or Hellblasters. Or vice versa, say you deployed them defensively, but now you know that you get to go first because you seized the initiative or something. Now you can redeploy them so you don't have to move out of hiding and then shoot them. Now you can just put them on the front lines and then move and shoot from there. And that's it for the Warlord traits and the review of the Vanguard Marine units from the Shadowspear box set. I actually like this side of the box set much more than the Chaos side, which is really saying something because again, I'm biased. But I actually think the Imperium side did come out a tiny bit better, mainly because of the Librarian combo. Overall though, I can't wait to see how these units shake up the meta, because I'm pretty confident in saying that I think the Librarian will definitely see some play, and maybe the Eliminators and Captain and Phobos armor as well. But like most of my videos, this is all just based off of my own opinions and my experience with the game. So I could be wrong, I could be right, we'll just have to wait and see. So that's going to be it for this video. Thanks again to all my patrons for supporting me. Your support allows me to continue making videos and playing Warhammer 40k full time, and I honestly can't thank you all enough. Without you, the channel wouldn't be where it's at today, and I am very appreciative of you all. So thanks again, I couldn't do this without you. With that said, if you're a new viewer or a veteran viewer who would like to become a patron and help support the channel, you can do so by making a pledge at patreon.com/almostprogaming. I offer many tiers of rewards for all different pledges, so you can find a tier that suits you the best with the rewards that you like the most, but is also within your budget. You also get exclusive access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord community that has over 100 people who love the game and channel just as much as you do, and we have some great conversations about 40k in there. We're always helping each other out when it comes to list building and ideas for the game. So if you want to help support the channel, then check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/almostprogaming. As for a little update for the channel, after this video, I am going on vacation for almost a week, starting on Monday the 25th, and I won't be back until the 30th, so there won't be any more videos for the rest of the month. With that said, if you become a patron in between the 25th to the 30th, you won't be able to talk to me in the Discord channel until I get back. So if that's one of the things you were looking forward to when becoming a patron, then you can always just wait until the 30th or later to sign up. or just enjoy the company of the other patrons in the Discord until I get back from my trip. This is my first vacation in the last 8 years that doesn't revolve around going to a Warhammer 40k tournament, so it's going to be nice to unwind and just hang out with friends for a bit. With that said, when I get back, you can expect a new Top 10 Armies video for March, a new tier list, and also a review of the new Chaos Space Marine Codex, which I found out while recording this video is now going to be coming out in a few weeks. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you again when I get back from my trip. Happy wargaming!